Welcome to the Simplicity of Wellness podcast. I'm your host, board-certified holistic nutritionist and professional life coach, Amy White. The purpose of this podcast is to share information that you can use to become leaner, stronger, and healthier by losing weight, shedding inches, maintaining muscle, and managing your mind, all while living your normal, busy life in this modern, sugar-filled world. Hello, simplifiers. Today, I want to talk about change, or rather, how do we actually make change happen? We all hear about, we have to do things differently and live our life differently, make different choices, create different habits, and that's how we're going to get this new results, whatever it is that we want. So we make these changes to create a result. But how do we actually create the result? How do you actually make change impactful? How does that change happen? I suspect that we're all out there doing things or trying to do things differently, but yet not necessarily getting what it is that we want. And thinking, well, I'm doing the right things, but it's not actually making a difference. So why am I even bothering? And then we give up. So what I want to talk about is this idea of having a goal. So there's a result that you want, and you're planning to take certain action to achieve that goal. But I think the part that's missing is the idea of measurable action. Just taking action without having any way to figure out if that action is working or not working is, I think, where a lot of the frustration can come in. It's having a goal and then having measurable action that's key here, because we need to recognize what's working and what's not working, because on our way to any goal, it's a journey and we're going to need to course correct. More than likely, it is not going to be a straight line. There's going to be ups and downs, and that's to be expected. So you have to understand how to manage those ups and downs so that you're creating, on average, this line to the result that you want. So again, I think it comes down to this idea of measurable action. What are you doing? And then how can you evaluate if it's working or not working? Let's talk about weight loss. I am a nutritionist, I am a life coach, and yes, I help women lose weight. I want you to lose weight in a way that allows you to become leaner, stronger, and healthier. I want you to feel in control and connected to your body so that you understand how your body's changing and what you can do to support those changes. So when I'm talking about having a goal and setting measurable actions, it's all about becoming leaner, stronger, and healthier. Yes, you can decide you want to lose 10 pounds, and you know what? You can stop eating for 2 weeks, and you probably can lose 10 pounds. That is not becoming leaner, stronger, or healthier. That is the opposite of the things that I talk about and I encourage my clients to do. So when you think of leaner, stronger, and healthier as an ongoing process, there is no finish line. It's you just evolving and managing that evolution in a way that makes you feel the way you want to feel and allows you to live the way that you want to live. In order to do that, you have to be able to evaluate what you're doing, what's really working for you, what are the things that aren't working for you, and then how are you going to recalibrate some of the things that maybe aren't working? What are you going to do differently? Being clear about the actions that you're taking and measuring help you then recalibrate as your body needs you to recalibrate, because of course your body is continuing to change, and as it's changing, the needs it has will change. So you will have to recalibrate. You will have to address those changes. When you start thinking about weight loss as just part of the process to getting leaner, stronger, and healthier, there are many, many different actions that you can take and measure against that process. Traditionally, our favorite measure when it comes to weight loss is the bathroom scale. But when you're looking at weight loss as part of this long-term process that just continually makes you better, the scale isn't quite as interesting. You'll realize that how you're feeling is going to be way more important to you than what the bathroom scale says. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to imply that weight loss is a very long process. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is weight loss is part of a greater process. The weight loss can happen in weeks for some people, months for others, depending on what your goal is, how much weight you want to lose, what you're trying to do. The process itself, the bigger process I want you to focus on, is the leaner, stronger, healthier process. That's the process that doesn't have a finish line. For me, I evaluate this process every day. I wake up, I get out of bed, I start walking to the bathroom, and I think to myself, how do I feel? Is my body achy? Do my feet hurt? Am I bloated? Am I gassy? Am I feeling tired? Did I get enough sleep? I'm evaluating how I'm feeling based on how I want to feel. I'm checking in. I know how I want to feel, so how am I actually feeling at this moment? Based on my answers, I can then evaluate what I've been doing and how to then course correct if I'm not feeling the way that I want to feel. In order to do that, I have to make sure that there are certain actions that I'm taking that I'm capable of measuring so that I can go back and make changes as needed. Starting in 2024, I decided that at the beginning of each month, I was going to set some measurable actions. Starting in January, I decided I was going to track my food. So that was one of the actions available to me, was what's going on with my food? How can I evaluate if my food is working or not working for my body? And for me to measure that, the easiest way to do that was to track my food so I could see what I'm eating, when I'm eating, how it's making me feel, what it's doing over time with, what's going on with the data I'm getting from the scale. So I've been tracking my food since the beginning of January, and it's going so well that every time we roll into a new month, I re-up on my food. I'm going to give you an example of what it means to measure and then evaluate and then recalibrate based on the information that you have. With food tracking, I'm able to see what I'm eating, when I'm eating. I can evaluate if I'm getting enough protein, if my meals are built in such a way that they keep me full and satisfied for about 4 hours. If I'm snacking, I'll be able to look at my food tracker and say, oh yeah, so I had some snacks the other day. What was going on? What was I eating? What was I doing? Who was I with? So just a lot of information from that food tracker for me. So at one point, again, I like to evaluate how do I feel. I was noticing that I was actually very gassy, and I'm not usually gassy. Along with being gassy, I tend to feel bloated. I do not like that feeling at all. So I thought, what's going on? What am I eating that's causing me to feel gassy? And so I was able to look at my food tracker and see that I had been eating a lot of this high protein pasta that we like. I noticed that I tend to eat a fairly large portion. So, of course, on the box, it gives you a certain amount is a portion size. I usually eat a portion and a half to 2 portions of the pasta because I love it. Totally fits into my nutritional profile. It works for me. It's all fine. On paper, it works for me. In real life, something was up because I didn't feel the way I wanted to feel. I was feeling gassy. I was feeling bloated. I thought, so here's something that I can manipulate, I can play around with and see what happens. Course correcting, I went in and I thought, okay, I'm going to eat the pasta. It's a great way for me to get fiber into my diet, but I'm going to have a regular portion size. I'm going to eat 1 portion and no more. I started to do that, and guess what? The gas and the bloating went away. Measuring the action that I was taking, I was eating food. That was an action. I was making choices about my food. This was part of the action. But I was measuring the action by tracking my food. And having done that, I was able to evaluate how my body was responding to the food that I was eating. So I was able to recognize that the high protein pasta is also a very high fiber pasta. And so that was causing my body to develop the gas and the bloating. I just wasn't processing the fiber as well as I could, and I was overloading my body by having more than a normal portion size. Now, if I didn't have that data or I wasn't investigating that action, if I wasn't tracking my food, I wouldn't have had that information to look back on. I wouldn't have had a way to course correct how I was feeling. And it's very likely at my age, at 57, I might have just said to myself, oh my gosh, I guess my body's changed. I guess this is just my new normal. And I would have settled for suffering with that discomfort because I didn't know that there was something I could do to change it. I mentioned that at the beginning of 2024, I decided one of the things I wanted to do was track my food, and that it's been going so well that I have consistently continued to do that each month. Food tracking isn't something that I typically have done. So this is new for me to consistently track my food. It's something that I would jump into to check in on myself, but nothing that I ever did consistently. It's not something that I ask my clients to do. When I first start working with clients, we are evaluating and checking all kinds of different actions, and food tracking is not one of them. It often can feel overwhelming for people, so I'm not suggesting that this is the thing that you want to dive into as your measurable action. I'm giving you the example of food tracking, but there are so many different options for you to choose from when it comes to actions that are measurable. If you're wondering about specific things that you can track and measure, go back to episode 2 of the podcast. The title is Transforming Health with Simple Lifestyle Tweaks. And in that episode, I talk all about levers. In fact, I actually put them into 3 specific buckets. So there are levers that you can use to figure out your food. There are levers that you can use to figure out movement. And there are levers you can use to figure out self-care. Levers are just things that you can take as specific action. And the podcast, in the episode 2 podcast, I really explain, I call them levers because I think of them as things that you can pull, actions that you can take to move the needle, to make things happen. But they're also actions that are definitely trackable. So they are measurable. Go back to episode 2, Transforming Health with Simple Lifestyle Tweaks, to get a list of all the different kinds of actions that I suggest. It's not an exhaustive list. There are so many different actions that you can take. This is just going to give you some ideas based on food, movement, and self-care. Today, I was talking about measurable action. I'm talking about measurable action as a tool to create a result that you want. Measurable action is also how you evaluate what's working and what's not working, and then are able to go back and course correct the things that aren't working so that you do make consistent progress toward the result that you want. In order to create the result that you want, you need to be able to manage the variables that will get you there. Measurable actions are those variables. You get to decide for yourself what those actions will be. My recommendation would be to pick one thing. Work on that, see how it goes, evaluate what's happening with your body. So every day, wake up, ask yourself, how am I feeling? How do I actually want to feel? Do they match? And if they don't match, think about what it is you can tweak or change to course correct so that you do start matching up. If weight loss is a goal, you want to take an action that's going to help you move toward that goal. If you go back to episode 2 and look at the different levers that I outlined for the food bucket, for example, that would be where I would start. When it comes to weight loss, I always start with food. Yes, movement is super important and I want you to move, and that means walking. I never start with exercise. Movement, yes. Exercise, no. Unless you're already exercising and it's a normal part of your daily routine and you love it and it makes you feel good, meaning you actually get energy from exercise rather than feel more tired from exercise. But my recommendation would be always start with food. So think about what you can do, what action you can take based on the food that you're currently eating, the way your diet is currently set up. What can you do differently to help you move toward your weight loss goal? Maybe you snack. Maybe you want to say, okay, I'm not going to snack for the next 7 days and see what happens. Maybe you like to eat in front of the television and you decide, okay, I'm not going to eat in front of the television for the next 7 days. See what happens. Evaluate how that new action impacted your ability to move toward the result that you want. Okay, that's it for today. And if you have time, if you enjoyed the episode, you got something out of it, please drop some stars and leave a review. I so appreciate you being here, and I especially appreciate all of the support. See you in the next episode. Have you ever said to yourself, I wish someone would just tell me what to eat? If so, today is your day. Go to the show notes and click the link, Your Healthy Kitchen, What to Eat, to download the starter food list that I share with all of my Hangry to Healthy weight loss clients. These are the foods that will calm your gut, eliminate the bloat, boost your energy, and shift you into a fat burner. This list is your first step toward body balance and weight loss for the last time.